working on a Georgia top neckline. So this is the bias tape. I cut it at 1.5 inches wide and sewn it into a circle. There's my seam allowance, 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I have quartered this circle, divided it into fourths. So I put a pin here at the seam, and then I divide it into half, and I put a pin down here. And then once I have those 2 pins, I match them up, go out to the side, put a pin here on this side, go over to the other side, put a pin in this side. So this circle is divided into quarters, okay? Now the neckline, I'm also going to divide into quarters. So hopefully when you cut it out, you made a little notch to mark center front and center back. There. If you did not mark center front and center back, all you have to do is match up your shoulder seams and then come out to the front, and that's where your center front will be. That's one of the quarter spots. And then from your shoulder seam to your back, then the second spot will be right there. And then you match up the center front and center back like that, and then come out to the side and put a pin over here, and it's going to land a little bit forward of the shoulder seam. This is the back, this is the front. The quarter mark is going to land a little bit forward of the shoulder seam. And you do that with the other side as well. Match up center front, center back. Come out to the side and mark the 4th spot. Okay, so I have the neckline divided into quarters, and I have my bias binding divided into quarters. Now I'm going to match them up. So from the right side, that seam, I always like to put it in the back. That helps me know where the back of my shirt is. So this is the back. Center back is right there. So I'm going to match up center back and center back, okay? All right, now I'm going to come around and match up my center fronts. Make sure your bias doesn't get twisted around as it goes, but match up center fronts. Then you're going to match up the side points. Okay, so these are matched up at the quarter points. Now what you're going to notice is that the bias is actually long. The bias is actually shorter than the neckline, okay? That's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. The bias is shorter, okay? Now this piece is cut on the bias so it can stretch. And if we match it up exactly, then the neck can stretch out a little bit. The bias, it being a little short, is supposed to help hold the neck together. But see how I can stretch the bias out to pretty much fit the neckline? That's what we need to do. So I'm gonna stretch it out, hold it here on one side, hold it here on the other side, stretch it out, pinch in the middle, and put my pin That way I don't have too far to sew in between each of my pins. I'm also going to pin this seam allowance to the back because I don't want it to get flipped around when I'm sewing it. Alright, so I'm going to hold this side, stretch it out, pinch in the middle. And do that for each of the 4 quarters. Alright, now I'm ready to go to the sewing machine. You can start anywhere along the circle of the neckline, and you're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, okay? And every time you're in between pins, you want to be putting a little tension on it, pulling a little bit to make sure that the fabric is flat, okay? So I got a straight stitch. Take your time, go slow, stop a lot, and rearrange things. Alright, now you can check, make sure it all looks good. I got a little pucker here, but I think it'll be alright. This one might not be alright. That's a little too much. Let's see what it looks like on this side. Yeah, I need to unpick that one and fix that one. That's okay. Alright, I'll fix this. Alright, that's better. Good. Alright, next we're going to turn this up so that our seam allowance and our bias are up, and we're going to understitch. We're going to stitch right close to here, and we're going to be stitching through this layer and these layers, okay? be smoothing it over. You don't want the bias to be folded up too much like that, okay? You want it to be nice and smooth. All right, then we look around, make sure everything looks right. This is what the inside will look like. Now, if you have any places like this where the shirt is trying to come up over your bias, you can trim that down. I'm going to trim this part down a little bit, so it's more like that. Okay. Okay, that part's done. Now we're going to go iron, and we're going to iron this to the inside. And when we iron it, we want to roll the bias all the way to the inside, and it's good to see a little bit of the right side of the shirt front from the back side. What you don't want from the right side of your shirt, you don't want to see the bias. You want to hide all of the bias like that, okay? All right, now I'm gonna sew around. I'm gonna sew with the wrong side facing up, right here along this edge, okay? And the other thing I'm gonna do is I have this piece of bias fabric that I cut, fold it in half. I'm gonna tuck this here in the back. This will be my tag so that I know which side is the back. Bumpy right here, might need to give a little tension in the back to pull it through. All right, here we go. Now we'll give it a good press and it should lay down flat for us. Here we go, beautiful.